on it. So I just stood there in horrible humiliation. And
At 86, Michael learned finally shattered a silence that had weighed on her for over half a century, and what she exposed was something no fan of the Waltons was remotely prepared to hear. She revealed that there was a single instant so brief it barely lasted a heartbeat that could have changed the entire course of her life if only Ralph Waite had been free. For decades, viewers sensed something simmering beneath their scenes. A spark too raw to be manufactured, a tenderness too genuine to be scripted. Now Michael admits the unthinkable. They both felt it, and they both buried it so deeply that even those closest to them never suspected a thing. And all of it began in one small room, on one ordinary day, with one look that should never have happened. But what truly unfolded in that room, and why did the two of them spend the next 50 years guarding that moment, as if the world could never be allowed to know? Michael Learned stepped onto the Warner Brothers lot in 1972 as a woman barely holding herself together, her marriage collapsing, her confidence shattered, her future uncertain. She expected a routine audition. What she didn't expect was Ralph Waite. He read a single line, lifted his eyes, and in that instant struck a part of her she thought long dead. The pull was immediate, overwhelming, almost frightening. Ralph felt it too. Michael saw the shock in his face, but he was a married man grounded in a moral discipline almost unheard of in Hollywood. She was wounded, he was principled, and together they created a tension so powerful it vibrated through every scene they shared. They never spoke of it, yet everyone sensed something unusual. Their lines flowed with a truth they never practiced. It wasn't attraction, it was recognition. And during one quiet break, when Ralph stepped toward her, everything nearly changed, until he abruptly pulled away. Ralph Waite had a reputation for being unshakably disciplined, a man shaped by hardship, loss, and a sense of duty he treated like a religion. But Michael Learned was the one force capable of breaking through that carefully constructed armor. For months, their connection simmered under the surface, unspoken but unmistakable. Ralph brought her coffee every morning exactly the way she liked it, without ever acknowledging that he did. Michael pretended not to notice, because if she did, the truth would become too real to ignore. But one night on set, as filming stretched past midnight and exhaustion crushed her composure, Michael collapsed into tears. Ralph crossed the darkened soundstage, gathered her gently into his arms, and held her as she shook. He didn't speak at first. He simply let her cry, his hands steady, his breath slow, grounding her in a way no one else could. Then he whispered the line that divided their lives into a before and an after. "Olivia will be all right, and so will you." It was comfort, but it was also confession. Michael later said she felt herself falling toward him, toward a possibility she had tried for months to deny. For a moment, Ralph almost let it happen. His guard slipped, his hand lingered, his breath caught. And then, like a man waking from a dream, he stepped back, hard, fast, almost violently. Because, if he didn't, he knew they would cross a line neither could return from. That retreat broke her heart, but it also saved them both. While America saw John and Olivia Walton as the very definition of stability, the reality behind the cameras was far more haunting. Michael Learned and Ralph Waite were not living the calm, wholesome life viewers adored. They were fighting a battle darker than anything their characters ever faced. Both were struggling with alcohol, each masking the symptoms from the world, yet instantly recognizing the signs in the other. Michael saw the subtle tremor in Ralph's hands. Ralph saw the exhaustion shadowing Michael's eyes. They never said a word, but they understood because they shared the same weakness. Then, without warning, Ralph vanished from set. The rumors flew: illness, a dispute, maybe even burnout. But the truth was far braver. He had checked himself into treatment, alone and determined to reclaim control before his demons destroyed him. When he returned, calm and clearer than before, he placed an old, worn Bible in Michael's hands. No inscription, no speech, but the meaning hit her instantly. "You can rise, too." Michael soon followed his example. and Ralph became her quiet protector, standing outside her trailer each morning, making sure she had made it through the night. One evening, as she hovered on the brink of relapse, Ralph appeared and spoke the sentence that saved them both. "If you fall, I will fall too, and I don't want that." Their salvation wasn't born from love. It was forged from shared pain, shared discipline, and a bond built on survival itself. To millions of viewers, Ralph Waite and Michael Learned appeared as the perfect married couple, steady, loving, almost spiritually aligned. But their on-screen harmony was built on a very real, off-screen clash of personalities. Ralph was fire, passionate, intense, easily triggered by anything he felt lacked authenticity. Michael was water, reflective, patient, guiding tension rather than feeding it. The contrast sometimes erupted in ways that startled the cast. Ralph once threw a script onto the floor, furious at a line he felt betrayed John Walton's integrity. Directors froze. Assistants looked away. No one dared approach him except Michael. She walked toward him calmly, handed the script back, and said, "Ralph, we'll figure it out. Together." That word "together" diffused him instantly. No one else had that power. Their differences created a volatile electricity that, when cameras rolled, became pure truth. In one famous argument scene, Ralph's real anger flared, and Michael's tears were entirely genuine. When the director yelled, "Cut!" Ralph rushed to apologize, horrified he had hurt her. But Michael stopped him with a soft, steady look. "That was perfect," she said. "Because it was real." That moment became one of the most iconic scenes in the series. Their emotional collisions weren't a weakness, they were the secret ingredient. Two people who could never be lovers without destroying each other, yet could never stop being drawn toward each other's gravity. And that intensity was exactly what kept America watching. Away from the studio lights, Ralph Waite and Michael Learned built a quiet, unseen alliance, one so subtle that even those working beside them never fully recognized it. Ralph protected Michael in ways almost invisible, adjusting props, shifting baskets, nudging set pieces so the light softened her features, and the camera met her at her strongest angles. These tiny acts weren't about craft alone, they were about honoring her, guarding her without ever crossing the boundary he held himself to. Michael protected Ralph with the same instinctive sensitivity. She knew the grief he carried from losing his daughter and could sense the moment it rose to the surface, the jaw tightening, the gaze drifting. When it happened during filming, she would quietly step into the camera's line, shielding him until he regained control. Their bond didn't fit romance or friendship. It was carved from shared wounds. And when she finally left the show, Ralph kept his distance, memorizing her goodbye instead of risking a single step too close. When Michael Learned chose to leave the Waltons in 1979, she knew she was walking away not just from an iconic role, but from the quiet, unspoken connection that had shaped her life for nearly a decade. The cast wept. Crew members lined up to hug her. Directors thanked her. But Ralph Waite, the man whose presence had saved her more than once, stood alone, several feet back, refusing to cross a boundary he had spent years protecting. Michael later said the look in his eyes that day was something she never forgot. Pain, pride, restraint, love that couldn't speak its name. After she left the lot, they stayed in touch, but only in the safest ways. Quick phone calls, brief congratulations, polite check-ins. They kept their emotional distance, fearing that if they leaned in even slightly, the foundation they built on discipline would collapse. Years passed. Roles changed, careers shifted, the world moved on. Then, in 2014, Ralph Waite died at the age of 85. Michael did not mourn him publicly. She did not offer dramatic statements. Instead, she kept a small photo of Ralph on her desk, tucked inside a frame she never discussed in interviews. His absence became a quiet ache, a private grief she held close to her heart. Fans continued to ask whether she had loved him. For years, she dodged the question not because she didn't know the answer, but because she did, and that truth was heavier than any headline could capture. Decades after the Waltons faded from weekly television screens, Michael Learned finally arrived at a moment when secrecy no longer protected anyone, not Ralph, not the show, and certainly not her. At 86, she sat down for an interview and, for the first time, allowed the truth she had guarded for more than 50 years to surface. She didn't speak to provoke a headline or stir scandal. She spoke because the weight of silence had finally become heavier than the truth itself. Michael admitted what fans had long suspected but never heard confirmed. She and Ralph Waite shared a bond that defied every simple definition. It wasn't an affair. It wasn't flirtation. It wasn't even romance in the traditional sense. It was deeper, an emotional pact forged through pain, discipline, mutual respect, and an unwavering determination not to destroy each other's lives. They were never meant to be lovers. They were meant to be each other's anchor. "We weren't meant to love each other," Michael said quietly. "We were meant to create a legend." And they did. Their performances as John and Olivia Walton weren't crafted. They were lived, drawn from two souls, balancing on a fragile line few could ever understand. Only now, after Ralph's passing and a lifetime of restraint, has Michael allowed the world to see what truly lived beneath that legendary partnership. A connection far more real and far more complicated than anyone ever imagined. In the end, Michael Learned's confession does more than illuminate a hidden corner of Hollywood history. It reshapes the way we understand one of television's most beloved partnerships. For decades, fans believed the warmth between John and Olivia Walton came from good writing, careful directing, or pure professional chemistry. But now we know it came from something far more powerful. Two human beings quietly carrying each other through the hardest seasons of their lives. Their bond never broke rules, never crossed lines, and never spilled into the public eye. Instead, it lived in the invisible spaces, glances, gestures, unspoken promises, and an emotional loyalty that endured long after the cameras stopped rolling. Michael's truth is not a scandal. It is a tribute to Ralph Waite, to their discipline, to the legacy they built together, brick by brick, scene by scene, and to the countless viewers whose lives were touched by a love story that was never meant to be a love story at all. If this revelation moved you, if it deepened your appreciation for the Waltons, or opened your eyes to the sacrifices behind the scenes, don't let the story end here. Like the video, share it with fellow fans, and subscribe for more untold Hollywood truths buried beneath the surface of the shows we grew up with. Your support keeps these hidden stories alive.